So the transfer window was closed earlier than ever, with Premier League clubs having less time than ever to conclude their business. With the window firmly slammed shut in England, let's take a look at one target each Premier League club should have signed this summer. Arsenal Alexander Golovin. Even before the World Cup, the Russian midfielder was being linked with a move to the Premier League, but Golovin's performances at the tournament saw his stock rise even higher, with host Russia amazingly reaching the quarter-finals, and Golovin was one of their best players. Formerly of CSKA Moscow, free kick expert Golovin had been linked with the Gunners and looked like he could be a great addition to Unai Emery's new-look Arsenal squad, but their interest never went anywhere, and Golovin will now be playing his football for Monaco after a big money move of around £27 million. He was also a target for Chelsea, but the Premier League won't be seeing Russia's greatest export this season. Bournemouth Kieran Tierney. The Celtic defender is the best thing to come out of the club's academy since God knows when, and that's exactly why teams up and down the country want to sign Kieran Tierney. Bournemouth were one of the teams reportedly interested, making the left back their top defensive target earlier in the summer. Despite being flattered by the interest, Tierney remains at Celtic Park, who will no doubt make a huge money move away from the hoops in the near future, such as the man's ability. But this season, he won't be playing at Dean Court. Brighton Thomas Delaney. Another player who performed well at the World Cup, Brighton were believed to be one of the 5 Premier League clubs tracking Thomas Delaney at the start of the summer, having also been interested in the Danish midfielder last summer following their promotion to the Premier League. As you probably know, Thomas Delaney did move clubs this summer, but it wasn't to the south coast with Brighton, rather the Bundesliga giants of Borussia Dortmund, who paid Werder Bremen €20 million for his services. He would have been a great signing by Chris Hughton, but you can't be too upset losing out to Dortmund. It's impressive enough just being linked with the same players. Burnley J. Rodriguez. The Clarets are preparing for a tough season where they'll likely have to deal with the rigours of Europa League football, providing they make it to the group stage, and therefore reinforcements were needed. While Chris Wood and Ashley Barnes were fantastic last season, more depth was needed, which is why they were linked with re-signing J. Rodriguez, who performed so well for Burnley earlier in his career. Sadly though, the forward was priced out of a move back to Turf Moor, where no doubt he could have rediscovered his best form. Cardiff City Troy Deeney. The Welsh side are looking to stay in the Premier League, and to do that they'll need a source of goals, which explains why they were interested in Watford skipper Troy Deeney. The striker has scored 28 Premier League goals in 3 seasons, and is a handful for any defender, which is why he would have been such a good signing for Neil Warnock. While they might have signed the impressive Bobby Reid, the former Bristol City forward has never played in the top flight. Cardiff are one of a few teams linked with the move for Troy Deeney, and Watford will be very happy they've kept a hold of their captain. Chelsea Gonzalo Higuain. The arrival of Maurizio Sarri, combined with Cristiano Ronaldo's move to Juventus, meant that Gonzalo Higuain's name hit the papers, being linked with the move away from Turin and towards the Premier League to link back up with new Chelsea boss Maurizio Sarri, who he worked with in Napoli. Sarri helped revive the Argentinian's career, and there were even reports in Italy that Chelsea had agreed a fee to bring Higuain to Stamford Bridge. But instead, he's now joined AC Milan on loan, while Sarri will have to try and get something out of Alvaro Morata that we did not see last year in his debut season in the Premier League. Crystal Palace Ruben Loftus-Cheek. The midfielder had a great season at Palace last year, thriving in his debut year of first team football, having been afforded the kind of chance at Selhurst Park that never would have arose at Stamford Bridge. Such was Loftus-Cheek's form for the Eagles, he made it to England's World Cup squad, and of course, Roy Hodgson wanted him back this season on loan once again, with Chelsea unwilling to sell their player. That hasn't happened, sadly for both club and player, so RLC will have to pray he gets some game time under Maurizio Sarri, otherwise it's a step in the wrong direction for a player so talented. Everton Jamal Lascelles. The Toffees were poor in defence last season, with the ageing Phil Jagielka and Ashley Williams struggling alongside the youthful but somewhat disappointing Michael Keane, so it was clear that Marco Silva needed to add a new defender to his squad. One name that was linked was Newcastle captain Jamal Lascelles, who had a fantastic season at the heart of Rafa Benitez's defence. The Magpies also faced interest from West Ham, but rejected their advances, while talk of an Everton bid never came to the surface, so the youngster remained on Tyneside. Fulham Matt Targett. One of the reasons Fulham did so well last season was the January arrival of Matt Targett on loan. The left back arrived from Southampton in the winter, and his role at left back freed up the ever so talented Ryan Sessegnon to express himself further up the pitch, scoring 15 times for the Cottagers last season. Fulham did try to make Targett's deal a permanent one, but Southampton rejected their bids, opting to keep the academy product at St Mary's. While left back might not come across as the most important position, it was one that really added balance to the Fulham side last season, and Targett's absence will be a sore one. Huddersfield Town, Adama Traore. While Wolves paid a club record £18 million for Adama Traore, the winger could have gone elsewhere in the window had things gone a bit differently. Another team linked with the move for Traore were Huddersfield, who were looking for more options out wide, with Tom Ince heading to Championship outfit Stoke City. At £18 million, Traore would have also become Huddersfield's record signing, but sadly for the Terriers, a move never came to fruition and the former Barcelona winger headed to Molineux instead, after enjoying the best season of his career in the Championship with Middlesbrough. Leicester City, Danny Drinkwater. The midfielder was immense during the Foxes' title-winning campaign and was okay the year after, but a move to Chelsea has done absolutely nothing for Danny Drinkwater, who missed the summer's World Cup as a result. With Chelsea adding more midfielders to their squad this summer, it was no surprise to see Drinkwater linked with an exit from Stamford Bridge. One of the clubs reportedly interested were former employers Leicester, who have been up and down since the midfielder left the club. If he had returned, we could have seen him link up with Jamie Vardy once again, with the pair combining so well en route to the Premier League title. Liverpool, NABIL FEKIR. This was a deal that seemed certain before the World Cup began, with the French forward even undertaking media duties with the club's in-house press. However, sadly for the Reds, the deal collapsed and FEKIR headed off to Russia to win the World Cup with France, while remaining a Lyon player. Liverpool have done great business this summer, but FEKIR would have been the icing on the top of an already heavily iced cake, and could have been the ideal Philippe Coutinho replacement. The deal didn't happen though, and Liverpool fans will be left to wonder what if, especially if they come up short in the title race this season. Manchester City, Jorginho. Just like the FEKIR deal, Jorginho to Manchester City seemed absolutely nailed on. A fee was agreed and the player had travelled for personal terms, yet somehow he's now a Chelsea player, with the Blues offering a bit more money, as well as giving him the chance to link back up with Maurizio Sarri. Jorginho will do brilliantly for Chelsea, which is exactly why the champions wanted to sign him, with Guardiola looking for a midfielder who can replace the ageing Fernandinho in the near future. Unfortunately for Manchester City fans, Jorginho won't be that man. Manchester United, Toby Alderweireld. It's a hat-trick of deals that seem certain to happen, as Toby Alderweireld's move to Old Trafford has been mooted all summer. With talk of a cheap release clause coming into play next summer, there were reports of Tottenham cashing in this summer on Alderweireld, who has to be considered as one of the best central defenders in the Premier League. Despite the plethora of centre-halves at Manchester United, Jose Mourinho has anything but a settled defence, which is why the club pushed so hard to bring Toby to the club. It's been a disappointing summer for Manchester United, and one that could cost them this season. Newcastle United, Alison Plea. Speaking of disappointing summers, that's exactly what Newcastle fans have had once again, as they witnessed Mike actually try and penny pinch his way to survival, rather than backing his manager Rafa Benitez. One player they were linked with was Nice forward Alison Plea, who scored 21 goals in all competitions for the French club last season. There were reports of a club record £20 million bid, but instead the forward moved to Borussia Mönchengladbach, and Newcastle's transfer record from 2005 remains intact. Southampton, Danny Welbeck. The Saints were shocking going forward last season, scoring just 37 times, which is exactly why they needed a new forward this summer. They were able to add Danny Ings on loan very late on deadline day, but another player they were linked with was Danny Welbeck, and the Arsenal forward would have added even more depth to Mark Hughes' squad. Wages were believed to be the stumbling block for Southampton, and they'll be praying that Ings can get the goals that Welbeck might have brought with him. Tottenham Hotspur, Anthony Martial. So Spurs have had a pretty disastrous summer themselves, with Daniel Levy never really bursting into life despite the need to add players to take Tottenham to the next level. One of those players could have been Anthony Martial, who was linked with a move to the new White Hart Lane all summer, even its latest deadline day. The Frenchman has fallen out with Jose Mourinho and could have reignited his career under Maurizio Pochettino, who in turn would have been able to add even more X-factor to his side, and a player who could also deputise through the middle in place of Harry Kane, who carries the entire goal-scoring burden on his glorious shoulders. Watford, Gonzalo Guedes. I mean, this one never seemed likely, but Watford fans are allowed to dream, I guess. The club reportedly made a €60 million bid for the Portuguese forward, in a bid that would have smashed their transfer record and gone down as one of the biggest transfers the Premier League has ever seen. Guedes is a sublime talent and one that is sadly a class above Watford, but you can't fault the ambition if they really did try and sign the PSG forward. West Ham, Maxi Gomez. The Hammers did some huge business this summer, but one area they didn't improve massively was up front, despite having had to rely on the goals of Marko Arnautovic last season, as the Austrian operated as a makeshift centre forward. They did sign Lucas Perez on deadline day, but one player who could have been even better than Perez was Maxi Gomez, and he could have been the perfect sign to complete Manuel Pellegrini's new look West Ham. Celta Vigo wanted £35 million for the Uruguayan striker, who has been likened to Luis Suarez, having scored 18 league goals in his first season in Europe. The Hammers were unable to match Celta Vigo's asking price, and will instead have to settle with what they've got and hope Javier Hernandez does a bit better this season. And finally, Wolves' Andre Silva. It's been a name that has been linked with Wolves for ages. Even when they were in the Championship there was talk of a huge £30 million plus move for Andre Silva, but it never happened then, and it hasn't happened this summer either, despite Wolves not really adding a reliant goal scorer to their squad. I know Andre Silva hasn't set the world alight at AC Milan, but he was good at Porto, and surely has to be better than Bonatini, who hasn't scored in ages. So Wolves didn't sign Andre Silva this summer, which means we get another few months of Silva to Wolves rumours before it doesn't happen again in January. Yay! So that's one target every Premier League club should have signed this summer. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching and don't forget to like, share and subscribe.